Good morning. The committee meets today to consider the nomination of General Eric Smith to be the 39th Commandant of the United States Marine Corps. General, I would like to welcome your wife, Trish, your daughter, Elise, son-in-law, Matthew, and your son, Travis, Captain Travis, and daughter-in-law, Hadley. I know that military service runs deep in the Smith family, especially service in the United States Marine Corps. And I thank each of you for your selfless commitment to the nation. General Smith, you are well qualified to serve as Commandant of the Marine Corps. As the current Assistant Commandant, you have been instrumental in helping to modernize and lead the Corps past years. Prior to this assignment, you led the Marine Corps Combat Capability Development Directorate and served as the Senior Military Assistant to both the Deputy Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Defense. An infantryman by training, you have commanded Marines at every level and across multiple theaters. Indeed, this leadership experience and understanding of the joint force will be critical for successfully guiding the Marine Corps in today's complex global security environment. The Marine Corps is in the midst of a substantial transformation, focused on competition in the Indo-Pacific, but capable of global employment. The service is restructuring around two concepts: littoral operations in a contested environment and expeditionary advanced base operations. The key element of these concepts is a more flexible amphibious force that can support a broader naval fight once ashore. Rather than simply acting as a landing force, the Marine Corps intends to help control the sea and air in support of the joint force. To achieve this, the Marine Corps is prioritizing a number of modernization efforts, including deep sensing, long-range fires to include anti-surface capabilities, enhanced air and missile defense, and improved ground and amphibious combat vehicles. These platforms will equip the Marines with improved force protection, lethality, and mobility. I have appreciated the Marine Corps' thoughtful approach during this restructuring, including its regular communication with Congress. Further, I appreciate the Marines' willingness to modify structural decisions such as increasing the number of cannon batteries or the size of fighter attack squadrons, when experimenting and wargaming demonstrated the need to do so. General, I'd like to know your plans for continuing these modernization efforts and any concerns you have with the Marine Corps' ability to operate as envisioned by Force Design 2030. As the Corps shifts to become a more tactical force capable of operating in forward dispersed environments, it will require more seasoned, experienced Marines. As such, the service will continue to see the average age and retention rate of its Marines increase. These trends, while generally positive, will require the service to reconsider how it manages its enlisted force. The Marine Corps has not experienced the same level of recruiting disruptions as the other services, but it is not immune from these challenges, particularly in its reserve forces. I would ask for your views on the Marines' talent management strategies and opportunities to succeed in the current recruiting environment. Considering the challenges facing the United States today, it is important for the Marine Corps to operate not just as its own service, but as part of a joint force. Succeeding against our potential adversaries will require all U.S. military services to work together, operate faster, and deliver greater capabilities from farther distances in contested environments. These are significant challenges that will require joint experimentation and collaborative research and development to overcome. I'm encouraged by the kind of work underway at the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory, where in particular technologies are being developed to help enable logistics in a contested environment. I hope we will share your views on service and joint experimentation and how the Marine Corps can ensure that its capabilities are interoperable and complementary across the force. Finally, your highest priority must be ensuring the readiness of Marines to perform their missions. If confirmed, you will be expected to support a culture of leadership, trust, and teamwork throughout the force, with no tolerance for behavior that erodes that culture. General Smith, I would ask that you share how you plan to address this responsibility. I am confident that you have the requisite skills and experience to provide the nation's Marines, their families, and Marine civilian employees with the leadership they deserve. Thank you again for your continued willingness to serve. I look forward to your testimony. Now let me recognize the ranking member, Senator Wicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a very fine opening statement. And General Smith, I want to thank you for your service and offer my congratulations on your nomination. I will join my distinguished chairman, in welcoming your family. They ought to be awfully proud of your unwavering and devoted service to your country. I think you're exceptionally well qualified to serve as Commandant of the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps Modernization Plan, Force Design 2030, is geared toward strengthening deterrence against China. I would like to hear today your honest assessment of where Force Design 2030 has succeeded and where work remains to be accomplished. The United States is entering a window of maximum danger for conflict with the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping intends to have a force capable of invading Taiwan by 2027. He's told us this. Even in the past month, China has shown it is serious about undermining our military and diplomatic power. It has harassed a U.S. reconnaissance plane and a U.S. Navy warship, disturbed World War II wrecks, engaged in espionage at an Alaskan military installation, and threatened cyber activity in Guam. The threats from Russia, North Korea, and Iran are not getting any better either. The window in which Congress can affect real change in our force posture and hopefully correct some of the troubling trends we see in the Western Pacific is closing. This is the decisive decade for the 21st century in the Indo-Pacific. In my view, the Marine Corps has met the challenge with vigor and urgency, even if change at scale is always hard and imperfect. Throughout the nation's history, the Marine Corps has distinguished itself as flexible, fast, and adaptable, hence its motto, first to fight. The ability for amphibious forces to search, target, and sink potential enemy naval and air combatants while maintaining a low signature is hard work. It requires new capabilities, concepts, and formations. General Smith, I'd like you to explain to the committee how you intend to continue that work, including unfinished business regarding amphibious lift capabilities. As Commandant Berger testified repeatedly before this committee, the leading edge of our deterrence is the ability to transport Marines and materiel across the vast distances in a maritime environment. Congress reflected this operational demand in the Marine Corps' 31 amphibious ship force requirement. I'm frustrated by President Biden's woefully inadequate defense budget proposal, which would slash funding for LPD 33, a critical platform in fulfilling a range of the Marine Corps' missions, including disaster response and alliance assurance. I would appreciate your views, General, regarding the amphibious ship requirement and LPD 33. If confirmed, you would be at the tip of the American spear in observing the Chinese military and ensuring the Marine Corps remains trained, equipped, and organized to deter conflict in the Western Pacific. I look forward to the testimony, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Wicker. Before we call on General Smith, a quorum is now present, and I ask the committee to consider a list of 4,194 pending military nominations. All of these nominations have been before the committee the required length of time. Is there a motion to favorably report this list of 4,194 pending military nominations?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. General Smith, please.
Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker.
Bring that closer, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, and distinguished members of this committee, it is a privilege to appear before you today. I'm humbled to have been nominated as the 39th Commandant of the Marine Corps. As our 38th Commandant prepares to retire after 42 years of service, I want to publicly thank him and his wife, Donna, for the countless sacrifices that come with that length of service. On behalf of the young Marines who will do most of the fighting and the dying when our nation next goes to war, thank you for your steadfast support of your Marine Corps. Your work ensures that future fights are heavily tilted in their favor. I suffer no illusions that I arrived at this hearing myself. The young lance corporals and lieutenants who so gallantly served with me in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the sergeants major and senior officers who have mentored me have my enduring admiration and gratitude. My family is with me today. They are a rare combination of grit, compassion, and patriotism. My wife Trish and I will celebrate 36 years of marriage this year, and her continued dedication to the youngest of our Marines and their families remains a benchmark for me to emulate. After 22 moves and years apart due to deployments, she stands ready to continue to serve if I'm confirmed. I am prouder to be called Trish's husband than I am to be called General Smith. Our daughter Elise, who is here with her husband Matt, was born while I was deployed to Desert Storm, so her time as a military child started with sacrifice. Her willingness to place work on hold to support me today shows that she remains willing to place service before self. And our son Travis, a Marine Corps captain, and his wife Hadley are here. Travis is currently on recruiting duty, but took a few days of leave to come support his old man. He did not get any dispensation for missing his recruiting mission, even though he's here. He has completed deployments to the Pacific and the Middle East, stands ready to fight if called. As a senior officer, I'm often greeted warmly by the public who thank me for my service and ask about my varied duty assignments. And while I remain grateful for these encounters, I know that it is our youngest Marines who deserve this recognition, and I hope to adequately represent them today. If confirmed, I commit to you that I will not fail our Marines, their families, or the civilians who serve with us. And I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, General Smith. Before we entertain questions from the panel, there are a series of standard questions which must be asked of every nominee, and you may respond appropriately. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes, sir.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No, sir.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree, when asked before this committee, to give your personal views, even if your views differ from the administration?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes, sir.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes, sir.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes, sir.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, General Smith. And once again, to you and your family, thank you for a lifetime of service to the Marine Corps. One of the issues that is concerning to all of us, I believe, is congested logistics. We understand that the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory is currently conducting experimentation on new technologies and future capabilities. If confirmed, how would you sharpen the Marine Corps' focus on this critical capability? You know, it's, if you don't have the ammo, it's tough to fight, basically.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Contested logistics in any theater is a significant challenge. I believe that contested logistics is an all-of-the-above matter. What I mean by that, sir, is you have to conduct pre-staging of certain resources, and fortunately we have a lot of allies and friends around the regions of the world who will allow us to do so. We have to be very innovative, as our warfighting lab is doing, so that we have unmanned systems to deliver those supplies that we so critically need. And also, we have to do some very creative work to do additive manufacturing and 3D printing forward. If confirmed, I'm committed to continuing that effort, because I do see one day we will be printing forward, in forward operating basis, we'll be printing major end items, aircraft engines, propellers. We'll be doing that forward as opposed to straining the lines that come from the United States through contested logistics areas.
I think your vision's accurate. That implies that we have to have intellectual property rights and many other things, which we will work on while you continue to develop your approach. The other aspect of this is this would be a joint effort. So what type of complementary approaches are you taking with other services, the Navy, Army, Air Force, Space Force?
Mr. Chairman, the logistics piece is in fact a joint fight. So as a current Vice Service Chief, we worked very hard through the Joint Requirements Oversight Council underneath the leadership of the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Staff, Admiral Grady, to ensure that everything we do is complementary to each other. For example, sir, when the Navy Logistics Command needs to move assets for the Marine Corps throughout the Pacific, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that what we need is exactly what we need. We know that what we call the Cuban square, the size, the weight, that we reduce that, and we've been on a significant effort to reduce our fighting weight, which, quite honestly, over 15 years of fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan had grown substantially. One of the first things to logistics is need less where you can.
Thank you. One of your prime responsibilities is training and organizing the Corps in order to operate in multiple combatant areas. If confirmed, how would you ensure your efforts are such that the Marines can, in fact, operate from CENTCOM to INDOPACOM to NORTHCOM, et cetera?
Chairman, if confirmed, I will continue to work with our Training and Education Command, and if confirmed, would direct them to ensure that our moniker of "in every climb and place" remains. We do that now in the high north with Norway. We train there repeatedly. We still train in the desert at 29 Palms, and we are clearly operating across the spectrum in the Pacific, and we're operating in the European theater, as we recently did with Task Force 61-2 in support of those operations after the reprehensible attacks of Russia into Ukraine.
Thank you. And then one additional responsibility is to manage the talent you have, and you have impressive talent. Your assessment at this point of the challenges you faces in terms of retention, recruitment, and basically just the morale and esprit de corps.
Chairman, the Marine Corps met its recruiting mission last year, and they'll meet it again this year. We've been fortunate because we've treated our Marines well through Talent Management 2030, that our retention goals, which we attempt to meet by October, were met in March this year. So Marines will vote with their feet, and they're choosing to stay. When we keep more, and what we're talking about, Chairman, is keeping them from between the 5 and the 10-year marks, not every Lance Corporal becoming a Master Gunnery Sergeant. We're talking 5 to 10 years, which is where our gap historically is. Because we're able to keep them, keep that experience and that talent, it's hugely beneficial to the service. And I think the reason the Marine Corps has met its recruiting objectives is we haven't changed. We haven't lowered our standards, and we won't. We're here to do warfighting and lethality, and we will not change our standards because the combat that comes tomorrow demands those high standards.
Thank you very much, General. Senator Wicker, please.
Well, thank you very, very much, and I appreciate that that statement. That I think is very important for us to understand why the Marine Corps members are voting with their feet, as you say, and what lessons we might be able to learn to apply service-wide. General Smith, the 23 NDAA set a floor of 31 traditional L-class amphibious ships, LHAs and LPDs, and gave the Commandant of the Marine Corps explicit requirements authority for amphibious ships. Many of us are frustrated that the Secretary of Defense has not set in motion processes to actually get this done. General Smith, is it your understanding, based on the statute, that you're going to be explicitly required to have 31 traditional amphibious ships?
Senator, it is. 31 is the minimum.
Okay, and why is this a sound, necessary requirement in your opinion?
Senator, it is.
Okay, and why is that? Why is that a necessary requirement?
Senator, we are and remain and must remain America's global combined arms crisis response force. When a crisis begins to erupt, that is not the time to begin to move to a pier, to begin to load a ship, and more importantly, sir, to begin to train your pilots to land on a pitching, rolling deck at night. 31, at a minimum, enables us to train and to deploy and to stay deployed so we can tamp those crises down and alter adversary trajectories on behalf of the joint force.
If we do everything necessary from a legislative standpoint right now, how soon can we see that 31st L-class amphibious ship?
So there are 31 ships in the inventory today, and what we seek and have sought for some time is to replace the aging LSDs, who are approaching 40 years of service life, with LPDs, which currently is the best performing ship in the production line. That is a one-for-one swap, sir. So when one
Thank you for that clarification. How soon can that one-for-one swap be accomplished if we start today?
The normal production for a ship is 2 years, Senator. So from the time it is put on contract until it is complete, it is a 2-year production cycle.
All right, let's look back at the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. How were 2 Marine Corps battalions able to deploy?
Senator, we had 2 battalions, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. One was forward in the CENTCOM area of responsibility, and the second was forward on a Marine Expeditionary Unit. So they were forward deployed already. That is what we do. That's who we are. So without that forward deployment, you give up time, and time is the one thing that an adversary will never allow you to have.
And the amphibious ships were absolutely a central part of that. Is that correct?
Sure they were, as they were in the initial moves into Afghanistan after the attacks on 9/11.
If we could have responded to the powerful earthquake in Turkey, resulting in 50,000 or more deaths, did we respond? And if not, why not?
Senator, we had a small detachment. Marines, in short, did not. We have Marine battalions. We have Marine squadrons ready to go. But when there are no amphibious ships to get on, to train with, then we are unable to execute that mission that is lawfully tasked to us as a crisis response force.
And one final thing, I anticipate that this committee and also our partners in the House of Representatives will direct increased attention and increased numbers for the Marine Corps Junior ROTC detachments. If we direct that this be done in the NDAA, will you commit to implementing this and increasing the number of junior ROTC units around the country?
Senator, yes. If anything is in the NDAA, of course we will comply. I would say that while Marine Corps JROTC is not a recruiting tool, my son is a product of Marine Corps JROTC, we owe that leadership tool back to the institutions. We also owe the most updated training materials and the best possible screened embedded staff to do that, because again, I find them to be highly useful. I have personal experience with them, but yes, sir, I do commit to that if confirmed.
Thank you very much. I hear what you say about recruiting. I think overall it's a citizenship builder, and it is a subset of excellence in almost any school where we see it. Thank you very much, General.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. Senator Shaheen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations, General Smith, on your nomination, and thank you to you and all of your family for your willingness to continue to serve. Both the chairman and ranking member mentioned Force Design 2030, which was General Berger's plan to realign the Marine Corps to address the challenges presented by the Indo-Pacific. Can you talk about what the state of play is for Force Design 2030 and how the Marine Corps is continuing to implement the plan?
Thank you, Senator. Force Design 2030 was an effort to modernize, is an effort to modernize the Marine Corps after 15 years of being focused on counterinsurgency operations, to focus us on state-on-state conflict and simultaneously retaining our global crisis response force, combined arms, global expeditionary capabilities. Force Design 2030 is in a good place. We have stood up, as a couple of examples, ma'am, mindful of your time, the 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment, the first of 3, was stood up in Hawaii. That unit recently exercised in Balikatan, the largest exercise we do with our Philippine allies and several other allies, and was highly sought after and highly credited with some of the really exquisite capabilities, long-range fires, low signature, that we've heard the chairman reference. So those efforts are on pace and need to go faster, because also, as referenced from Ranking Member Wicker, whether the year is 27, 26, 25, for the Marines, we are the fight tonight force. We want to be even more ready than we are every single day. That's our mission when we wake up. So Force Design is on track. We need to accelerate those areas where we can, and that'll come with the steady funding and the continued experimentation and quick feedback that we get from our extremely excellent Marine Corps Warfighting Lab.
Thank you very much. You talked with Senator Reed about the success that the Marines have had with retention and with recruiting, when for the rest of our military those numbers are down over the last year. Can you talk, I mean, you suggested that it was maintaining the standards in the Marine Corps that was appealing to people. I didn't think that meant that you were suggesting that the Army and Air Force and Navy had lowered their standards. So what lessons are there that you think the Marine Corps can share with the other branches of the military on how we do a better job recruiting? Does everybody need to have a show like NCIS that encourages people to think about the Marines, or what do you think would be helpful?
Well, ma'am, you're absolutely correct. I would never disparage my fellow services, because we fight as a joint force. And I've been to 3 different wars, and they've all been with joint forces. I think one of our keys to success is we do send our very best to recruiting duty, and we reward them when they go, with promotions, with prime duty assignments when they leave recruiting. And we have the ethos that we are Marines. We will accomplish the mission. And our objective and our goal and our mandate is that everyone who seeks to become a U.S. Marine has an opportunity to become one. You may join some other organization, you become a U.S. Marine. It's a transformational process, and people want a challenge.
So when we had a chance to meet in my office, one of the stories that I told you was about meeting with former members of the Afghan Female Tactical Platoon who are here in the United States, and who, a number of whom expressed an interest in continuing to serve in our military, and who were very appreciative of the opportunity to be in America, but really wanted to become full-fledged citizens and think about the ability to give back to this country. So should we be doing more to recruit those patriotic immigrants who want to serve this country? And do you have thoughts about how we would do that?
Ma'am, as a former recruiter, anything that enables us to access the totality of talent from which to draw so that we get the very best Marines, I am in favor of. And if confirmed, I will continue that effort to make sure we have opportunities and access for everyone who wishes to compete to become a United States Marine.
Thank you. I only have a little bit of time left, but I did want to ask you about the war in Ukraine and what lessons you think the Chinese and President Xi are looking at as they look at what's happening in Ukraine.
Ma'am, I could never say what is in President Xi's head. I would say that the individual fighting spirit of individual soldiers and Marines matters most. And what I also say is the lesson that should be taken is that those who have lots of partners, allies, and friends are very difficult to defeat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. Senator Fisher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, General. I certainly appreciate your service to this country, the service and sacrifice by your family as well, and look forward to this hearing and your answers to many of our questions. Congress has generally been very supportive of Force Design 2030. Should we anticipate any shifts in the concept if you are confirmed?
Senator, thank you for that. Force Design 2030, of which I've been a part since the beginning, is on the right track, and if confirmed, I will continue that. And what I would say, ma'am, is we have shifted it since the beginning. We're Marines, we're innovators. We've changed, where we found that we shot long of the target, so to speak, we will immediately modify when the data represents that we need to make a change. We've done that several times with significant things, like rotary wing assets.
When we met last week, you designed that Force Design 2030 as the Marine Corps returning to their normal state of being after 20 years of desert warfare. Could you expand on that in this setting as well for us, please?
Yes, ma'am. I've served extensively in Iraq and Afghanistan, and all those of us who did were proud to do so. But that was a very, very focused fight on counterinsurgency. It did not, as previous commandants have said, prepare us for peer state-on-state conflict. So as we got larger, heavier, with more equipment, it becomes increasingly difficult to move that equipment in a time frame that matters. When you don't have deep water ports and weeks to move equipment, days to offload, you have hours or short days to make the entire move. You have to modernize, become more agile, longer range, lower signature. This is peer-on-peer conflict that we have not experienced at this level that is possible since 1945.
Chairman Reed touched on this, but could you expand on it a little bit about how the Marine Corps needs to change their logistic capabilities to be more effective in a contested environment?
Man, when I worked for Dr. Carter as a Secretary of Defense, he had a master's degree in theoretical, or doctorate in theoretical physics, and you can't change physics. Things that weigh 10 pounds weigh 10 pounds. So what we seek to do is pre-stage, forward stage, and as I said, do additive manufacturing and 3D printing forward. We can also use certain technologies that make things lighter, polymer ammunition, lighter weight body armor. Every pound matters when you're trying to move things across the expanse of the Pacific. And our UAVs, our unmanned aerial vehicles, surface and subsurface platforms that can deliver supplies, key supplies at the critical time, that is what we're investing in now, and we're trying to accelerate that as fast as we can.
You mentioned the technologies that continue to be innovative when it comes to warfare. Do you see emerging technologies that the Corps will be able to access, to be able to enhance your operations, your abilities, and help you maintain a competitive edge? And in this setting, can you talk about any of those emerging technologies that you think that you'll be able to really take a hold of and be able to help your force?
Senator, I think one of the keys, and I usually hammer on this pretty hard, is 3D printing forward. When we own, as was referenced by, I believe, the chairman, the tech data rights to things we procure, I can build and print aircraft engines forward. When you can do that, ma'am, that is an entire supply chain that is relieved of some stress, and it gets the engine into the hands of the warfighter today, not weeks from now. That is key, and you can pre-stage those metals and bring with you the 3D printer. That is in our future. I am convinced of that, ma'am, and if confirmed, I'm focused on that.
And to keep you moving quickly as a force?
Ma'am, absolutely. As we say, speed is life.
You mentioned the Balikatan exercises in the Philippines. Can you briefly tell us how they help you inform the future force posture decisions that you're going to be faced with?
Ma'am, those assets that are forward with very high-end intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance tools in the broad unclassified setting that we're in, when they can sense what the adversary is doing and make sense of their intent and pass it to our allies and partners, that gives you the time to move, to position, and to be in position to thwart their efforts. It's called first mover advantage. And when we provide that to the joint and allied force, it does, in fact, exponentially change the power of the force that is in the air or on the ground, because you have anticipatory moves that you can make, vice respond to.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Gillibrand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Smith, congratulations. Welcome to your family. It's wonderful to have them here. The Marine Innovation Unit, it's headquartered in Newburgh, New York. It's tasked with maintaining our technological advantage, and we'll have 270 reservists assigned this year with significant expertise from those Marines' civilian careers, whether it's in AI, whether it's in cyber, whether it's in other tech careers. What value do you see MIU bringing to the Marine Corps, and how will the Marine Corps look to balance the competing needs of developing these Marines professionally through deployments and reassignments to other reserve units and retaining valuable expertise in the MIU?
Thank you, Senator. That unit at Newburgh is exactly where it must be, because that innovation academia corridor is really like no other. That's the purpose or the reason for its location. Location matters. Lieutenant General Dave Bellin, head of Marine Corps Forces Reserve, came up with that idea. I have spoken to the MIU, the Marine Innovation Unit, and man, they are sergeants through colonels. They're their own business owners. They're already in these businesses. They already have the connecting files and tissue. So if confirmed, I will continue to give them tasks as the assistant commandant. I gave them the logistics task, figure out how to make us more logistically sustainable, and I would commit to you, ma'am, if confirmed, they will be a priority because they already have the tools.
Thank you. The Marine Corps submitted a legislative proposal to increase the service obligation of cyber officers to 8 years after completion of MOS training. Can you walk us through the experience in Marine Corps that led to this request, and how this change would impact the Marine Corps' ability to provide cyber officers to units in the fleet and combatant commanders? Do you have any concerns about disincentivizing service in this MOS?
Senator, your last first, I don't have any concern. We have lots of contracts of 5, 6, 7, 8, even 10 years. The exquisite credentials that those cyber operators will receive are highly valuable in the military and outside. So we think it's a fair trade, and they think it's a fair trade too, because we're doing well in those numbers. Lieutenant General Jerry Glavey, who used to be the 3 at U.S. Cyber Command, is now our Director of Information, Deputy Commandant for Information. He is one of the driving factors behind that. We looked at our recruiting model, we did some analysis, and we thought we could ask that of those individuals to receive those exquisite credentialings, and we were correct, and we'll continue to do that, ma'am.
The Marine Corps current plans include incorporating intelligent robots and autonomous systems specialties throughout the total force. Do you currently have enough Marines with expertise in this area to extend these capabilities across the fleet? If not, how do you anticipate developing this capacity?
Senator, we don't. I don't think anyone has the level of robotics experts, AI experts they would like to have. So while we are developing our own, we are closely coordinating with others, to include Army Futures Command, Office of Naval Research, DARPA, to make sure that the joint force collectively focuses on those two highly important areas that you just described, ma'am.
Thank you. In 2021, several Marine Corps flight students accused some of their instructors of sexual harassment and immediately started to receive substandard performance evaluations. They were pulled out of flight training. They had to wait nearly 2 years, and sometime after their allegations had already been substantiated before they were cleared to return to the flight school. These were incredibly accomplished and dedicated women who chose to serve their country in the Marines, and after being sexually harassed, they were placed in limbo for years and told to expect separation. I'm glad that they are now back in the cockpit, but what lessons has the Marine Corps learned about how to handle sexual harassment and retaliation claims in the future?
Senator, sexual harassment, sexual assault's a crime, period, all stop. If confirmed, I'm committed to working with you and members of this committee to make sure that the standard which they should expect is that anyone who shows up to flight training, regardless of who they are, receives the exact same syllabus and the same opportunities to earn their wings of gold. I'm committed to that, ma'am.
One of the critical aspects of Force Design 2030 is wargaming, and these exercises led you to change the size and functionality of your infantry battalions. As you continue to work out what does or does not work best, how can Congress help you and the other Joint Chiefs rapidly modernize our force to ensure that we are prepared to face our next military challenge?
Senator, our wargaming and analysis team at Quantico did, in fact, in artillery terms, we always shoot the first round long. You want it past the target so it illuminates the target. So we did that. After 3 different experiments from 3 different battalions and 3 different divisions, we came back and changed the number of the infantry battalion back higher. We also made sure we manned that battalion in the 96, 97, 98 percentile of manning rate. So we'll continue to innovate with that. And make sure that we stay up and ahead of the pacing threat. I think the authorities we've been given in terms of personnel management from Congress have been extraordinary, and I believe we have what we need, and if confirmed, ma'am, I'm committed to maximizing all those tools already provided to us by this committee and by Congress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Rentz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, General Smith, for being here today. Congratulations on your nomination and to your family as well. Thank you for your service and support. Truly takes an extraordinary family to get this far, so thank you very much. I would like to dive back in to the amphibious ship requirement because there has been a lot of debate. It's already been raised by a number of my colleagues here today. But General, how does that requirement square, the requirement of 31, how does that square with assumptions about building the force for denied environments against enemy sensor and strike capabilities? Because there is some behind-the-scenes debate about the class of amphibs and survivability in those denied environments. Can you walk us through that, please, and what those requirements mean?
Senator, I can. First, survivability is never binary. Things are made more survivable if, more survivable when. As a quick example, no aircraft is inherently survivable alone because the enemy makes anti-aircraft missiles. No ship is inherently survivable alone because there are torpedoes and strike missiles. Infantrymen are not immune from machine gun fire. So the totality of the joint force moves an asset and protects an asset. Mm-hmm. So when those capabilities that we have discussed in our various office calls, ma'am, our ground-air task-oriented radar, our long-range strike capabilities, when those are asked for by combatant commanders and sought out by operational commanders, they must get to the fight. Those amphibious warships get them to the fight. They're there initially, and they also assist us in the logistics challenge because they carry 15 to 30 days of sustainment. If you don't have that initial sustainment up front, then the logistics challenge gets harder. And if a fleet commander or a joint force commander, more importantly, decides that those assets are key, that joint force commander will protect those assets with the plethora of tools that they have at their disposal.
Okay, I appreciate that, General, because what I want to see and what I want to make sure that we are doing is authorizing what you need and so that you have it when you need it. What we have seen in the past, and I'll give a very upfront example, the littoral combat ship. We commissioned a number of those a number of years ago, and some of those have only been commissioned for 5 to 6 years, and they're already on a list to be decommissioned. So what I want to make sure is that we're actually procuring what you need and that it will stay in our inventory for years to come, and that we're not spending millions and billions of dollars on something that we think you need, and you're going to turn around and say, no, we don't need that in 2-3 years.
Senator, thank you. And what we need is what's been provided by Congress, which is a minimum of 31 L-class ships, 10 big decks, those are our helicopter jet carriers, and 21 LPDs at a minimum. And those must be in a ready state because Marines are in a ready state. And crises never wait for you to finish repairs or finish training before you go. We need those 31 at a minimum.
Thank you. I appreciate that, General. And I'm going to dive into our Special Operations Command and your Marine Raiders. And this falls a little bit outside maybe of your day-to-day management, but Force Design 2030 calls for a smaller footprint, better signature management and maneuver, deception, and tempo on the battlefield. So, General, how does the Marine Corps Special Operations Command fit into your thinking about littoral operations?
Senator, just under 3,000 Marine Special Operators who are out there in MARSOC, Marine Special Operations Command, led by Major General Challenger, have been instrumental in assisting us with experimentation. And when we talk about experimentation, what we mean by that, Senator, is when they are already forward deployed, they have been given asks and tasks by Marine Corps Warfighting Lab. While executing your mission, try this, test this. They give us real-world operational feedback. They're doing that every time they deploy teams around the world, and they have been extremely helpful. And if I'm confirmed, I'm committed to continuing that with MARSOC.
Very good. I appreciate it. I just want to bring this up yet once again as we're looking at a constrained budgetary environment. As we're moving forward, we may be asking our forces to downsize, and I think it's incredibly important that we recognize the role that our Marines play, that MARSOC plays, and that we're very careful not to undercut the defense of our nation in this constrained environment. And I know, Chairman, that we'll work and do all we can to support our warfighters. So thank you very much, General Smith, and congratulations.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. Senator Manchin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And General, thank you so much for your service and your son and your family's dedication to our country. I appreciate it. I very much appreciate our conversation yesterday, and we were talking, I think, and I think I told you that in my lifetime, going clear back to the Vietnam War, watching and being involved very carefully, this is the only just war I've seen us involved with the right purpose, is the Ukraine, supporting a country that's willing to fight and die for their freedom, if you will, and democracy that they cherish. Can you tell me what you have observed and learned basically from your people out front in that war, and how it's changed our perception of how we would conduct ourselves?
Thank you, Senator. The war in Ukraine has taught us a few things, although I think the final lessons learned are yet to be learned. But here's what we have assessed thus far. As I said earlier, the individual fighting spirit and willingness of an individual soldier, or in our case, Marine, is paramount on the battlefield. It always has been, always will be. If you train and prepare a resilient, tough warrior, they are very hard to kill. We have found that over and over through history. Low signatures matter. If you are observed on a modern battlefield, you will be targeted. You have to have mobility and low signature. What's changed over the last 15 or 20 years is that the ability of an adversary to detect you has become almost off-the-shelf technology that anybody can procure, even your lesser adversaries. Long-range fires absolutely matter. If you don't have the range to reach an adversary, then you're of no real consequence on the battlefield.
Are we restricting any of the concerns that they have and the type of equipment they've asked for and support?
Senator, there's a very rigorous process, the Presidential Drawdown Authority, which we're on number 41. The Marine Corps is a part of that. So we get an assessment of what those tools asked for and then authorized would do if provided. Would they change our Marine Corps readiness? So we are part of that process and always have a...
Do you think we're supplying, we're supplying them what they need? I know the F-16, they keep asking for the fighters. They want long-range missiles. They're asking for those types of things they think that would help them in defending themselves but turning the war.
Senator, I would not, as a nominee, I wouldn't speculate on what should or should not be provided under Presidential Drawdown Authority, but I can commit to you, sir, that if confirmed, any request that's made, we will give that a thorough vetting on part of the Marine Corps to ensure that those resources that are required are provided.
Also, we talked a little bit about basically how we treat our soldiers and we leave no one behind, and the families, compared to the Russians, what they have done, what we have heard, the atrocities going on, and bodies not even being returned so there can be reparation or basically any payments or any support to the families. Have you found that to be accurate?
Senator, what I can say is What we provide is we always take everyone off the battlefield or continue looking until we do. We treat our families well, and for those who have sacrificed everything, we care for those families. That is not true of the Russians, and I would not want to be, I would not want anyone to compare them to us because we are not in the same zip code.
Can you also speak briefly on what cost savings would be to the branches of military? Of course, what you oversee is our Marines. If we did and got our work done on time and got our budget done by September 30th, and you had a guaranteed budget number to work with versus a CR, can you tell us the cost savings there?
Senator, I think our rough math is approximately 4 of the last 10 years total time has been spent in a continuing resolution status. Whether that savings is 5 or 10%, I don't have an exact number, but I can tell you that when all your funding comes in 4 or 5 months out of a year, it is impossible to spend it smoothly, correctly. Manufacturers can't absorb that. The defense industrial base struggles. And I think that's actually where most of our waste will come from.
I'll throw you a figure out. American Enterprise Institute threw out a rough estimate of $200 million per day under the latest continuing resolution that covered the start of the fiscal year 2023. That's a total of $18 billion. That's real money.
Sure, that's real money.
We better do our job, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, General.
Next up, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, good to see you. I appreciated the office call. I want to thank your family sitting behind you. I appreciated your comments about your family's sacrifice. It's really important to remember that. I heard you had to straighten out Captain Smith's tie this morning, so I know as a father and commandant you had a duty to do that. More seriously, you've not only served your country with distinction, you have bled for your country. Not many 4-star generals in the U.S. military can say that, so very much appreciate that. General, on April 18th, the Commandant, along with the Secretary of the Navy, CNO, appeared before this committee, and yet this committee is still waiting for responses to questions for the record. I had 75 QFRs on many of the issues today. These would have been better informed our questions for you today. I understand OSD is still reviewing this, but it is disappointing for anyone watching from OSD that it takes 2 months to get responses to this committee on critical issues, particularly as we're going through the nomination period of members of the Joint Chiefs. That's not your area, but it's something they need to do a better job on. This morning, I sent a letter to the Secretary of the Navy, a bipartisan letter. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit this for the record.
Without objection.
14 U.S. senators on this committee. That's about 2/3 of the committee. Many of the ranking members and chairmen of the subcommittees on sea power, on readiness, that gives the Secretary of the Navy and the Department of the Navy a clear indication of how this committee feels about the department's failure to meet the 31 amphib ship requirement. You've already spoken about this a lot. You can see the committee cares about it. I commend General Berger for sitting next to the SecNav 2 months ago saying 31 amphibs is the requirement. So can you expound again, General, because this is really important, how critical to the Marine Corps' mission is having a minimum of 31 amphibs? There's been a couple stories in the press the last couple months on the 31st MEU having the Marines but not the ships to deploy. Maybe you can talk about some real-world examples like Sudan, where we had Marines but not ships to potentially save Americans. How critical is it to that mission, and do you fully support, in your personal opinion, the need for 31 amphibs as a minimum?
Senator, thank you. Yes, sir. 31 is the minimum, and that 31 is ready. Ready ships, able to deploy. The key...
By the way, on that point, the Commandant in testimony last year, I believe, talked about amphibs have a 33% readiness rate in terms of maintenance in the fleet. So if you have 31, you divide that by 2/3 and you get the number of ships available. Can you comment on that as well?
Senator, I can. Ready ships mean a ship that is ready to receive and train with Marines. As you know, sir, you don't simply deploy. You prepare to deploy for months. As I said earlier, a young Lance Corporal who's operating their amphibious combat vehicle in a wet well at night in 3-foot seas, they shouldn't do that the first time on their way to a fight. We have to have those amphibious warships to train with and to not just deploy, but to remain deployed.
So can the Marine Corps do its global response mission without 31 amphibs, in your personal opinion?
No, sir, we cannot.
Will Marine Corps force design be a success or failure without 31 amphibs at a minimum, in your personal opinion?
So, yes, sir. Force design will continue because it will make us more ready to deal with peer threats. But, sir, those 31 amphibious warships are a part of it, an absolute vital part, just as if as long-range fires, low signature communications are. But those 31 amphibious warships, sir, are vital for the Marine Corps and, more importantly, sir, for the nation. They're a national asset.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, both chairmans, the letter that we submitted, as you know, Chairman Kane, makes it so the Secretary of the Navy 2 months ago committed to come back to this committee with a plan to get the 31 amphibs and follow the law. That's what this letter is asking him to do soon. But I think, General, your testimony is helpful in terms of just how important that is to the Marine Corps' overall mission. But to your point, the national security of our nation. Do you believe it's broader than just the Marine Corps' mission?
Sir, it is my personal and professional opinion. It is broader than the Marine Corps. It is a national asset that is the true Swiss Army knife of the nation, and it must be kept forward. It is a national asset. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. Senator Blumenthal, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General, for being here today. Thank you, your family, and I want to join you in thanking General Berger for his service, which has been extraordinary in a difficult and challenging time. And you will meet the same kinds of challenges and difficulties. One of them, no doubt, will be recruitment. The Marine Corps has been an exception in meeting its recruiting goals. You and I discussed this issue when we met, and I know how focused you are on female recruitment. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about female recruitment as a priority for you.
Senator, if confirmed, what I can tell you is I'm committed to any individual who is qualified and who wants to attempt to be a Marine. We want you to do that. We need access to 100% of American talent. We have to have access to everyone. As Marines, we don't care where you come from. What we care about is you, the individual. We care deeply about each individual having the same exact opportunity, male or female. And I am committed to making sure, if confirmed, that we continue to offer that opportunity, to offer young people the chance to challenge themselves to see if they have the mettle to be a Marine.
Female or male?
Female or male, sir.
I was impressed as well by your conversation about the feedback loop, so to speak, and in particular about how we all, you and I in particular, can learn from our children. I'm not going to reveal the contents of our conversation in the presence of your children, but I know how proud you are of them and how closely you listen to others. And I know that one of the aspects of the force design that's most important has been the campaign of learning, COL, which provides the kind of analytic underpinning so that the Marine Corps learns as it implements and adjusts to the feedback that it receives from the folks on the ground, the Marines who are actually affected in real time. And I think that listening is tremendously important. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that approach to leadership, because I think it informs much of your future leadership as Commandant.
Senator, thank you. And if confirmed, I'm committed to that campaign of learning because it is vital. And the way we do it is, in fact, just basic leadership. It is kneecap to kneecap, face-to-face leadership so that a young Lance Corporal feels comfortable saying, hey, sir, ma'am, this didn't work. I have a better idea. And you see this in a well-oiled CH-53 crew, for example. The pilot may be flying, but the crew chief's in charge in the back, and they will often offer harsh feedback. We do that in the ready rooms. We do that around terrain models before and after an exercise. We have that going at the lowest level, Lance Corporals through sergeants, lieutenant colonels, colonels, all the way up to me. Marines, as you know, sir, they're not shy about providing harsh feedback. And thanks for not revealing the conversation because one of my harshest critics is sitting over my left shoulder, I think. And I get a lot of straight feedback on many things.
That's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you, I know how sensitive you are to the quality of life of your Marines. What are the needs to improve housing, daycare, health care? Is that an area where you intend to focus?
Senator, if confirmed, I will focus on that. And I will tell you, sir, the saying is you recruit the Marine, but you retain the family. And if you don't take care of Marines, and that is a warfighting function, take care of their families, they can't focus on the mission at hand. So barracks, chow halls, gyms to stay fit, to be ready to fight, housing, spousal employment, those are key to keeping Marines. And I would argue that those are truly warfighting needs, because if an individual leaves because of the family needs not being met, you'll have to recruit a new Marine, and you can't replace 12 years. I always say time is a gift you cannot give the adversary. They're vital to warfighting.
Thank you. I agree with the chairman that you are eminently qualified, and you have my support, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Tuberville, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, General, for being here. Thanks for your service. Thanks for your family. I'm going to brag about you here a little bit. Being a Texas A&M Aggie, I was there for a short period of time. I know some of your family is Aggie fans, some are Longhorn fans. We won't bring that up. But I don't think many people here know and understand the importance of school like Texas A&M. Being there for only a year, it just brings back patriotism. And many mornings I was up at 5 o'clock watching these cadets work out, watching the band work out, which actually went through a tougher workout than our football team did. But it's patriotism at its best. So congratulations on your nomination, and look forward to supporting you. You know, you said something as we talked yesterday that resonated with me, and the proper mentality for a military leader. You said the focus of the Marines is warfighting and lethality, as it should be. That focus is what we need in our military right now more than anything else. We live in a dangerous world, and I would hope that some of your colleagues in the Pentagon would catch on to a little bit of that and get politics out of this. I mean, politics is detrimental to a lot of things. It's good for some things it's not. Military, it's not. A military focused on political agenda loses its effectiveness. So I was glad to hear you talk about, you know, the enlisted men and women that do a great job, that doing it for the right reasons. You also discussed that Marine Corps has changed its standards, hasn't changed its standards, and it's a privilege to serve. You said Marines don't make a good product, they attract a good product. What a statement. I mean, that's awesome. And I can remember all the sayings back in the years growing up on TV, advertisements about the Marines. Awesome. But do you foresee any challenges now that you're getting ready to take over the reins as the head coach of running this organization, which America is so proud of? Do you see any changes that you would make in terms of recruiting the best young men and women in this country?
Senator, thank you for that. If confirmed, I'm committed to continuing that ethos, that legacy of warfighting excellence, because as you mentioned, sir, we attract people who want to be better. They want to return to society as better citizens than they come in as. So I'm committed to maintaining our high standards of warfighting, lethality, global deployment, and making sure that our Marines hymn says we are first to fight for right and honor and to keep our honor clean. We keep our honor clean, and that ethos and that moral integrity matters. And I think people understand that, and if they send their children to attempt to become U.S. Marines, you know, those words have to ring true, and we'll hold them true. I'm committed to that, sir.
Thank you for that. I had the opportunity to be on the USS Nassau back during the Iraq War as a coach. They put a couple of us on there to really see what life was about. Amazing. We were on the USS Nassau, and we had, I think, 1,500 Marines on that. It's a troop carrier. And I had the opportunity to walk around and talk to these young men and women because they were getting ready to be deployed that night at 3 a.m. on shore. I've never seen like the organization. And I tell people, organization, I learned this from some people I work with, organization is a key to winning. I've never seen the evacuation of 1,500 troops in such a quick time. Obviously, it's dangerous, but it was awesome to see, and awesome to see men at work, the Navy personnel on the ship, and of course the Marines going on shore. You know, we make a boat or a ship, you'd call it, in Mobile. It's called the TEFP transport. Can you talk about its strengths and what you think about that? You know, in general. Tell me the truth. We make it in Alabama. Tell me what you think about that as a Marine.
Senator, the TEPF, the fast transport, I've used it when I was the commander of Marine Forces in Japan. It is just that. It is a fast transport. Can move in the 25, 30 knot range.
How many people at a time?
Certainly several hundred, depending on how it's configured, because it is configurable. It's got a well deck, not a well deck, pardon me. It's got a deck underneath where you can haul significant amounts of equipment. It's got a ramp so you can put long-range fires, you can put personnel, and you can move it really fast and really far. Senator, if I can, I know it's your time, but because my sergeant major would chastise me sitting in front of this committee can be a little intimidating, I think I said honor twice in our Marine hymn, first to fight for right and freedom and to keep our honor clean. I might have said honor twice, but that's never bad to say honor twice.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. General Smith, to you and your family, congratulations. I note that the Marines are doing relatively well in recruiting, and you have a son who's a Marine recruiter. I don't suggest causation, but there's a positive correlation there that I just want to bring up. I want to extend my thanks to General Berger, Commandant Berger, for his long service. Let me associate my comments with those of others about the amphib situation. The committee's been puzzled because when we've had commandants, CNOs, and SECNAVs before us, there's sort of an unequivocal 31 amphibs, and they need to be ready. And yet we often get budgetary documents or shipbuilding plans that suggest, wait a minute, is this the policy or not? I was proud to be on this letter with Senator Sullivan, along with many of my colleagues. I have come to believe that the issue is not lack of unanimity within the SECNAV, CNO, or Commandant. I think it's more within the OSD or White House, and we need to kind of get to the bottom of that. But I appreciate your unequivocal testimony on this. I want to ask about Pacific posture. One critique that I hear some raise about the Marine current focus is that the Marines are becoming so focused on Pacific challenges, winning the Pacific fight, that in doing so it may be losing ability or degrading ability to be lethal in CENTCOM and EUCOM. How would you respond to that concern, General?
Senator, thanks. I'll give a quick anecdote, trying to be mindful of your time. Sir, when I was a lieutenant, I trained to fight against the Soviet motorized rifle regiment. We continued to train even after the wall came down because that was the most stressing challenge, a peer competitor. When I went to Liberia and conducted a non-combatant evacuation operation, and then later when I went in to conduct counterinsurgencies in Iraq and Afghanistan, I felt pretty well trained because I had paced myself against the fastest runner. Our commitment to the Pacific is driven by the National Defense Strategy, but we are retaining those same capabilities globally. And the things, the long-range fires, low signature, those are applicable in any battlefield, just as our Task Force 61-2 did in support of operations in EUCOM.
Thank you for that. If confirmed, what changes or adjustments would you want to see in terms of mobility and logistics support in the Pacific Theater?
Senator, if confirmed, the focus, the pacing, we talk about China as the pacing challenge. We talk about logistics as the pacing function. It is simply a matter of time and resources. One must invest in the technology, the innovation to be able to move assets, to pre-stage assets. So I'm committed, if confirmed, to continuing that. And there are some promising technologies which will take a little bit of a burden off the joint logistics chain. One small thing, Senator, when allies and partners are shooting the same munitions because we're truly interoperable, that takes a significant load off. And I think that's where we're heading, because we have a lot of partners, a lot of friends, a lot of allies in the Pacific and globally.
And I do think that's the strategic value we have that's unmatched and is not likely to be matched by any of our adversaries. We've got people, we've got platforms, second to none, but our ability to link arms with allies is something that others can aspire to, but they're not likely to reach. On that topic, let me ask you about AUKUS. We are grappling with this both on the Armed Services Committee but also on the Foreign Relations Committee because it deals with foreign military sales. Much of the focus right now is on Pillar 1, the ability to transfer Virginia-class submarines and related technology to Australia. But this is just a precursor to a broader increased presence and the forward deployment of both UK and US submarines to build stewardship in the region. If confirmed, how do you see the Corps fitting into the integrated deterrence strategy that AUKUS is meant to advance?
Senator, as you know, we keep, for about 6 months out of the year, we keep a Marine Air Ground Task Force in Darwin. The Australians are phenomenal partners. So that force that's down there at the southern end of the first island chain is absolutely vital to security and to being prepared to deter conflict and win if required. Recently, Marine F-35s and Marine CH-53s have communicated with and resupplied U.S. submarines. When the transfer of submarine technology happens and those Australian submarines are out there, we'll be able to do the same with them. We're committed to being able to do the same with them, and that is absolutely vital. And our contribution to AUKUS is ensuring that those 2,500 Marines continue to be good ambassadors, good warfighters, to enhance that already exceptional relationship with the Australians. That's all part and parcel.
I appreciate it. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Budd, please.
Thank you, Chairman. General, thanks for being here. I enjoyed our conversation in my office last week. I also want to thank your family for being here and for your time in North Carolina as well. You know, in our discussion, we talked about an issue that's top of mind, I'm sure, for you and for many of us as Americans, and that's the rising threat of China. So if confirmed, how do you see the Marine Corps contributing to the joint force in competition and potential conflict in the Indo-Pacific?
Senator, concur with you, and of course, as does our national defense strategy, that China is the pacing challenge. The Marine Corps keeps a Marine Expeditionary Force forward in the Pacific. On any given day, there's 27,000 Marines roughly west of the international date line, several thousand more in Hawaii ready to go. And of course, our forces in California are poised and focused on the Indo-Pacific as is required. The Marine Corps, as an expeditionary crisis response force, is first to fight, and we must stay forward. We call it stand-in forces, but those Marines are already forward. We just have to ensure that they're best armed, best equipped, best trained and organized to be able to deter and change the trajectory of an adversary action before it becomes a full-blown crisis. That's who we are, what we do, and being forward with our allies and partners has immeasurable value. My time in the Pacific, and I assume my son's time in the Pacific for him, taught me that.
Thank you. Now, there's no doubt that the Marine Corps will play a critical role for the joint force, but can you talk specifically about how force design is both threat-informed and budget-conscious?
So, sir, I would say on the first part, it is threat-informed in that the deep analysis that has gone into what our adversaries globally can do. China is the pacing challenge, Russia is the acute threat, and then, of course, violent extremism, Iran and North Korea. What capabilities do they have, and how do we need to thwart them? It is completely threat-informed, and it moves daily through our intelligence estimates. And then as far as the budgets, sir, if confirmed, I am responsible or would be responsible for balancing the Marine Air Ground Task Force, families, munitions, housing, training, all of that. But force design was not a budgetarily driven process. It was what do we need and what things are less important in the fight that we think is coming. So let's focus on the things that are most important. And as you know, sir, we've done some self-funding to be good stewards of the tax money, but that funding, self-funding, we've maxed that out, if you will, and we will seek support, and if confirmed, I'll seek support where required, and I'll never be shy about telling you what our young Marines need to have an unfair fight in the Pacific or globally.
Thank you for that. Since both of us have family members serving as Marines, I was glad to hear you say that you don't ever want them in a fair fight. It seems like force design is intended to make sure any future fight is definitely in our favor. Now, that being said, there's still considerable criticism of the Marine Corps modernization efforts. One of the things that stuck from our conversation is that you said it's not about being right, it's about winning. So I agree with you, and I'm hoping you'll commit to continue rapid and smart and intelligent experimentation and reversing course when something doesn't work. General, will you commit to that?
Senator, absolutely. When that data becomes available, as we have done and made modifications, because as I said, sir, I'm committed to that because I want to win.
So one of the other issues that will be critical to any future fight in the Indo-Pacific is the need to work with our allies and with our partners. You alluded to that earlier, but how is the Marine Corps currently partnering and training with allies in the region, and where and how can we be doing more or better as a partner?
Senator, your Marines in the Pacific and globally. We're in Honduras. We're working in parts of Africa. We're in Djibouti. We're up in the high north with Norway. We're also in the Pacific in Thailand, the Philippines, Singapore, Japan, Korea, Australia. We are globally present. And the way that we maintain that global presence in many cases is to be forward with our amphibious warships, because those warships bring with them helicopters, jets, long-range fires, all in one package. And often, when those exercises begin and end on certain days, you can't afford to have 7 different methods to have pieces arrive, piece parts. We have to show up as a Marine Air Ground Task Force. So I think your support for those amphibious warships is vital, and if confirmed, I'll continue to work to earn that support.
Thank you, General, and thank your family as well. I yield back, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Budd. Senator King, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, welcome to the committee, and congratulations on your nomination. A couple of quick questions. First, you're the first general officer I've seen before the committee who has grasped aggressively the potential of 3D printing, which basically can shorten the supply chain from 1,000 miles to about 10 feet. I hope what you'll do to make that a reality is to insist that the people in procurement procure the intellectual property as well as the hardware. Is that something that you're going to be attending to?
Senator, if confirmed, I am 100% committed to intellectual property and technical data rights. They're vital.
Because without it, you can't print the part that you need that will hold the whole operation up.
Senator, correct.
Another brief question. You're not only being confirmed as Commandant of the Marine Corps, you'll be a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and giving advice to the President of the United States, best military advice. Will you commit to us that you will indeed stare the President in the eye when necessary and give that best military advice, even though it may be contrary to the wishes or the policy direction of the President? That's a tough position in the Oval Office when the President says, come on, General, get on the team. Are you willing to be straightforward with your best military advice, regardless of the circumstances?
Senator, I am. Always have been.
Thank you. As you know, there's been an effort, or there is an effort, to hold up the approval, the confirmation of all general officers. Is that having an effect not only on the general officers, but down the line on other people who are waiting in line for promotion and filling in of vacant seats?
Senator, it will have an effect. I've put my focus on our most junior Marines first. We're taught leaders eat last. So when a general a colonel who has been selected for general, for example, is not confirmed, I'm also capped at the number of colonels I can have. So there's a lieutenant colonel out there who cannot be promoted. And while those numbers may be small, word will get out, and that is detrimental for those young lieutenant colonels, because that's about how far down it will eventually ripple, sir.
Would you say that this consistent blocking of these nominations is compromising national security?
Sir, I think it certainly compromises our ability to be most ready. And I'll give you one short example, sir. Marine Expeditionary Force, our largest one, has about 48,000 Marines in it. There's supposed to be a 3-star and a 1-star in charge of that formation. The 1-star focused on the Marine Expeditionary Units, which remain our crown jewel. When the 3-star soon retires, and he will, for a variety of reasons, he's served honorably and well and has endured some family tragedy, he will retire. When he does so, there'll be a 1-star, fairly new one, in charge of that 48,000 person Marine Expeditionary Force.
And that compromises readiness and decision-making and the effectiveness of that division.
Sir, it does.
Thank you. I think you've answered this several times, but did you know there's criticism of FD 2030, and one of the fundamental criticisms is that it converts the Marines from essentially an offensive capable force to a defensive force. How do you respond to that criticism?
Yes, sir. Our ethos is offensive. We are first to fight. There's a saying that nobody likes to fight, but somebody has to know how. It's actually not true of your Marines. We are an offensively minded force. Defense is a part, must conduct that as well. But our systems are designed to enable the Marine Corps and the Joint and Allied Force. We're Marines, we want to win. I'm less concerned about who puts the warhead downrange than that the warhead goes downrange. That's an offensive mindset, and we teach that from boot camp on. We're still teaching knife fighting and bayonet fighting. We haven't changed that ethos.
There have been some examples, though, recently. In February, my understanding is the Marines were unable to meet a European command request to surge an MEU to the Mediterranean. It took a month before the Marines left North Carolina. That's one example. Turkey, again, the embarked Marines weren't there at the time of the emergency. 2 months later, special forces were evacuating citizens from Sudan, not the Marines. Are those indications of limitations in FD 2030 and the philosophy, or are they just sui generis, not typical of Marine Corps readiness to respond?
Sir, in the instances you described, we have Marines ready to go. We do not have the amphibious warships to be forward. Those warships are vital. That is who we are. We're a naval force as well as a joint force, but we have Marines, but we must have the ships to be forward deployed for those instances that you described, Senator.
I wasn't intending to ask about amphibs because everybody else has, but you just made the point that without that capability, you can have the Marines, but you don't have the ability to get them there. And I guess finally, and I think you've touched upon this, FD 2030 is a big vision and a big change. And I hope that you're willing to continuously review the effectiveness and the impact upon readiness and the mission of the Marines, so that if there are course corrections necessary, you will step up and make them.
Senator, I'm 100% committed to that. Anytime there's data that says we need to change to be more modern, more lethal, more ready, I'm in favor of that, and I'm committed to change wherever change is required.
Thank you, General. Appreciate your service.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Scott, please.
General, first off, thanks for your service. I want to thank you for your sacrifice, you and your family. You do a great job, by the way. Can you just talk about the importance of Force Design 2030 and what challenges you're having to implement it?
Senator, Force Design 2030 is our modernization effort to move from 15 or so years of being focused on counterinsurgencies to being ready for the next fight, before the next fight happens, as opposed to waiting for the fight and then modernizing on the fly. Where we are currently is making rapid progress, but we're never satisfied. So, I mean, we're Marines. We want to go faster. As the Fight Tonight force, I'm ready, but I want to be more ready. I want to be more ready every single day that I can. That's our mission. So force design will make us more lethal, more agile, and more able to be first to fight, getting down to our fighting weight, as we say, because over 15 years, we've gotten a little bit heavy and reliant on logistics, which were very stable. That will not be the case in a state-on-state conflict, Senator.
What challenges do you have to get there?
Senator, I think the challenges that we have will involve steady funding. We have to make sure that we stay on track. And the other piece that is important to us and that will be a challenge is ensuring, which if confirmed I'm committed to, that we retain our Fight Tonight global crisis response force while simultaneously modernizing. That is a wicked hard task, as they say, Senator, but if confirmed, I'm committed to doing both because I think the American people require and demand us to do both.
So can you talk about your recruiting? You, as you know, the military's had some struggles on recruiting, but you haven't. The Marine Corps is doing a good job. So what are you doing that's working, and what can you do better? And you probably don't want to give advice to other branches, so I want to ask you to do that. So I want you to just talk about what you're doing and why it's working.
Well, Senator, on that last point, we actually, I think, we are all part of a joint force. I was, quote, birthed under Goldwater Nichols. 86, I started in 87, so I don't know anything else but joint. If you were to go to one of the local recruiting stations, whether it's joint service, we're all there. If an applicant comes in and wants to do something but maybe can't meet that qualification, that recruiter will take him or her to another service. They do it all the time. It is a joint fight. What we're doing, sir, is it starts with, in my opinion, and professional assessment, you must put your best and most fully qualified out there as recruiters. Almost 70% of our contracts come from face-to-face contact. A young person sees a Marine, says, I want to be that. You have to make sure that that person who they wish to emulate is the best you have to offer, and then you reward that individual with a duty station preference or a promotion, and then you hold the standard to make sure everybody knows that, as we often say, we didn't join you, you joined us. These are our standards. If you wish to become a Marine, step up and take the challenge. There's lots of young people who want that challenge. We're open to giving it to every single one of them who wants to try.
Thanks. So you probably don't want to say that the Biden budget is not sufficient, but if you had additional resources, what would you want them for on top of what was requested?
Senator, any additional funding that we would theoretically receive from Congress, if confirmed, I'm committed to putting that to things that we are already doing, accelerating being more lethal, accelerating being even more ready, and obviously toward ensuring that our organic mobility, naval amphibious warships, CH-53K helicopters, that our platforms are even more ready than they are, but mostly toward accelerating what we're doing because we don't know when the fight starts, so we must assume it starts when the sun goes down tonight.
So how important is it that, take Taiwan as an example, they get all the military equipment that they've ordered and not received? How important is that to you and your ultimate ability to make sure you can help make sure China doesn't take over Taiwan?
Senator, what I can say is that I've dealt quite a bit with foreign military sales during my time, and anytime one of your friends, allies, or partner is better armed and better prepared, as we see in the Ukraine, that is a good thing for us because that is a more ready partner is a more able partner, and when crisis comes, you don't have time to begin to interoperate. You must be interoperable before the crisis starts. If confirmed, I'm committed to doing all I can to make sure that foreign military sales process is smooth.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Hirono, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To ensure the fitness of all of the nominees who come before any of the committees, I ask the following two foundational questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, ma'am.
Congratulations, General, on your nomination. And of course, I join my colleagues in thanking General Berger for his years of outstanding service and leadership. I want to ask you about, well, I also join my colleagues in expressing our support for 31 amphib ships for you. And we don't, we do need to get to why, after everyone agrees that this is a good idea. And Senator Sullivan there led the charge in the latest effort to focus our attention on that need for 31 amphibs. So we will continue to pursue that in terms of your readiness. The transition of Marines off Okinawa and to more dispersed locations, including to Hawaii, we already have some of our Marines in Hawaii, but has been ongoing for a long time. And to basically move people our Marines out of Futema, and I don't quite know how we are proceeding with building up in Henoko, but I hope that is proceeding after such a long time. So meantime, our alliance with Japan has gotten stronger, and a new Marine Littoral Regiment, like the one already in Hawaii, will be stood up in Okinawa. General, how have the posture changes planned under the Defense Policy Review Initiative made the Marine Corps stronger in the Pacific?
Thank you, ma'am. That DPRI, as it's known, the relocation ensures that we have strategic depth across the Pacific from Japan, specifically the southern Ryukyus, and then, of course, Iwakuni in the home islands, down through Guam and back to Hawaii. That gives us some depth and reach across the first island chain. And that 12th Marine Littoral Regiment that you described, that was a very significant move. We're very grateful for our own State Department and the government of Japan for allowing that to stay when it was designed to go somewhere else. That is very significant, and I think it speaks to the need for those kind of rapidly deployable long-range fires units.
So the ability for the Marine Corps to do its mission in the Pacific, in my view, is predicated on something as basic as a strong infrastructure at our major installations like those in Hawaii and Guam, as well as smaller dispersed locations throughout the region. Yet, as you have testified previously, our infrastructure is not where it needs to be. If confirmed, how will you prioritize the foundational elements of readiness like water and electricity at our installations?
Senator, if confirmed, a priority and a deep priority is that infrastructure. Those bases and stations are power projection platforms in a modern fight. They're not simply bases where we live. It's a power projection platform, and the power they're projecting is the people who live on them and their families. They must be cared for and retained, and you only do that through quality housing. You do that through child development centers. You do that through water treatment facilities. I'm committed to those if confirmed.
Well, the thing is that those are priorities that have been articulated, and yet when we look at the requests, those priorities are not particularly reflected. So one of the areas that I'm very much focusing on in the Readiness Subcommittee is our infrastructure, and I will look to you for articulation and actual funding that will be reflected, because we can't have our water pipes leaking and electricity going off in our major hospitals in the Pacific, all of that, and I'm sure you two are familiar with what's going on at Red Hill and the need for billions of dollars to safely remove the 100 million gallons of fuel that is there. So I'm really looking for a plan, particularly for the Indo-Pacific AOR, that will reflect a commitment to strong infrastructure and not constantly wait until things break down for us to pay attention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rono. Senator Schmidt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, General Smith. Appreciate our conversations. Nice to see your family here. Should be very proud, and thank you for your service. As you know, as we talked about, your nomination comes at a time where communist China means business, and I think that threat has reached critical levels. Also comes at a time where the Marine Corps is at a crossroads as far as the Force Design 230 priorities. And you've been asked a lot of these, I'm not going to repeat because Senator Scott must have stolen my notes because he asked almost the exact questions I wanted to ask you. But as far as, platforms that are most critical for that Force Design 230, where do you feel like we're at? How can we be most helpful in making sure the Marine Corps is positioned? Because I think that obviously as our attention more and more focuses to the West and the Indo-Pacific theater, the Marine Corps has to play a very important role. So what is it that you need by way of weapon systems?
Sir, in terms of weapon systems, it is our long-range strike, and that is things such as, Senator, naval strike missile. It is our aviation ordnance that is being delivered from F-35 platforms and currently F-18s. Those munitions and those systems are absolutely vital. Our Marine Air Defense Systems, we call it MRIC, Medium Range Intercept Capability, absolutely vital, sir, and if confirmed, I'm committed to continuing those programs. And to your point, sir, mobility. Organic, meaning things the Marine Corps has direct control over. That mobility, be it KC-130 transport refueler aircraft, CH-53K heavy haul helicopters, and most importantly, amphibious warships. Those are all part of the spectrum of organic mobility that enables Marines to be first to fight. We absolutely must have that to best support the joint force in the nation.
And I know that, again, Senator Scott asked a similar question, but how do you feel like where are we at with this? Your honest assessment of where we're at and opportunities and challenges moving forward to reach the goal.
Sir, we are in a good place, but we are never satisfied. I mean, that's our goal as Marines. As a short example, sir, our CH-53K, it reached initial operating capability, just did its first full lift of 36,000 pounds and had 22% power left. That's unheard of. That's happened. We have demonstrated naval strike missile repeatedly in the Pacific. That's there. The 3rd Littoral Regiment stood up there. Our MQ-9 Alpha extended range ISR platform that is an aerial gateway to close kill chains for us and the Joint Force, it is there. We've been using it in Central Command, moving it to the Pacific. Those things are there. We need to accelerate them to make us most lethal, because we're never satisfied, sir, that we move fast enough. There's always, just like on a 3-mile run that we do, sir, you can always squeak out another 5 or 10 seconds on your physical fitness test if you really want it.
Well, that kind of leads, it's a great segue to your success on recruiting. And I know you mentioned having, your best advocates and recruiters out in front, and those are how those connections are made. What else would you attribute that to? Because I think that we've had this discussion in this committee among ourselves and with other folks who sit before us. And this is a big challenge, right? We see sort of a declining pool. Is it just that? Is it the expectation that you're creating that we have a very, very high standard and we want you to, join us, but we have great expectations? I mean, what else is it other than having those sort of best and the brightest in front of the recruits?
Senator, it is incredibly hard work on behalf of our recruiting command, and it doesn't come without the resources to advertise, to offer the opportunity to become a U.S. Marine to those young people that are out there, high schools, college graduates. So it's not without the basics of best facilities, best recruiting literature, best advertising. That's important, but it starts and ends with people, sir, and it really is an ethos that we can't fail. The Marines don't fail. We tend to not attract people who are sort of interested in service. They're going to be committed, and we're going to make them better if they show up. We're committed, and we expect you to be committed, and we're not going to change that, sir. Our recruiters don't fail. They're working incredibly hard out there, Senator, and they deserve our gratitude. One thing, if I may, Senator, the ability to, if confirmed, I would would seek additional help with this committee to ensure that we do have access to all the high schools to simply offer an opportunity. If students don't want it, that's fine, but we want to make sure we offer that because we offer some of the best opportunities this country has.
Thank you. Thanks for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Schmidt. Senator Warren, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, General Smith. It's nice to see you here and have your family here. So our greatest strength as a nation is our people, and it is clear that you have a strong record of making sure that Marines have the support they need. You made that very clear in our conversations, but it's clear in your record. And one of the ways we communicate our priorities as a nation is through our budget. So, General Smith, do you agree that your priorities should be reflected in the budget you submit to Congress?
Senator, absolutely.
Good, good. Other parts of the federal government, unlike other parts of the federal government, the military services and combatant commands lobby Congress by sending a second request for billions of dollars on top of their annual budgets. They call them unfunded priorities. I call them wish lists. Under the recent budget agreement, every other part of government is being asked to do more with less. As we discussed in our visit in my office, these wish lists are used to game the process and have included essential items like spare parts that clearly should have been in the base budget request. Last year, the Army included funding for military housing in its wish list instead of its base budget. Now, if people are our strength, then programs that support them should not be relegated to the wish list. General Smith, if you're confirmed, it will be your job to advocate for your budget priorities and decide what's going to make it onto your wish list. Will you commit to not including funding for programs that support service members and their families in your unfunded priorities list and instead to put those costs into your base budget?
Senator, I am committed to making sure, if confirmed, that our priorities of people are, in fact, reflected in our budget. And what I would offer, ma'am, is in rare circumstances, for example, a hurricane just hit Guam. That was certainly not something we anticipated months ago when the budget was submitted, to simply seek and counsel and guidance from this committee and our civilian oversight to ensure those families are still taken care of, irrespective of the exact timeline.
As you know, we have procedures for dealing with emergencies that have come up since the time the budget has been submitted. But I think it's really important that we back away from this very damaging practice. I have a bipartisan bill with Senator King, Senator Lee, and Senator Braun, in which the Department of Defense supports to eliminate the statutory requirement to produce these annual wish lists. We can't expect the American people to continue to support huge budgets if we can't even implement this kind of basic reform and discipline into the system. So that's one issue I wanted to raise, but I want to raise one more. I don't have a lot of time left, but I want to touch on the impact the across-the-board holds on military nominations have on our national security. Secretary Austin sent me a letter that said, quote, "The longer that this hold persists, the greater the risk the U.S. military runs in every theater, every domain, and every service." But you touched on another part of this in your testimony last month, noting that 45,000 Marines are going to be without a 3-star commander. Those who support these holds say that all we're talking about is holds on something that impacts senior officers, and only senior officers will be affected, and so that's all right. General Smith, can you just speak for a minute about what the downstream effects that you see are and what it means if these holds continue?
Yes, ma'am. Your point, as I referenced a little bit earlier, the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, our warfighters forward, should have a 3-star and a 1-star. In the cases where those commanders will retire after almost 40 years of service, that will leave a 1-star in charge. And it's not that those 1-stars are not capable, but I've been doing this for 36 years. So as I walk a flight line, or as I walk a firing range, or as I walk through a barracks, there's a high likelihood there's not much I haven't seen. And I can fix things before they get started. That experience, that leadership that comes only with experience is vital, because it's about not getting yourself into a bad position, not making the decision that a more junior officer might make that then has subsequent second and third order effects, which do in fact lead to readiness, which our readiness is national security.
In other words, I'm hearing you say that these holds affect not just those people who are identified as having their promotions held up, but they affect the entire operation. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Cotton, please.
General Smith, welcome, and thank you for your lifetime of service and your family's service and sacrifice as well. Congratulations on your nomination. On Force Design 2030, I feel that we've reached the point that the former chairman of this committee, John McCain, used to say, the Senate often reaches where everything has been said, but not everyone has said it. However, I won't repeat what everything is said. I will raise one aspect of it, though. General Berger's Force Design has stirred up quite a hornet's nest among a lot of your retired flag officer counterparts, some of whom I know served with you and were your mentors. Could you explain a little bit why you think some of these retired general officers are so opposed to what General Berger has proposed and what he's done, and what steps you might take, if confirmed, to help mend fences?
Senator, I would never want to speak for anyone else. I'm not a believer in proxy votes, if you will, so I would never speak for another. What I can tell you, sir, is if confirmed, I would do what I've already done, which is to continue to speak and listen to our former leaders. I have, in the last 2 weeks, spoken to every living former commandant, and if confirmed, I'm committed to continuing to listen to them and all of our veteran Marines who have experience that matters, and make adjustments as need to be made that are based on data. But I'm always ears open, sir, and always open to being better.
I appreciate you don't want to speak for anyone. I know that you've read the criticisms, though, of retired flag officers and others about Force Design 2030, many of which are well-meaning and come from people who are generally well-informed about these matters. What do you think those criticisms might be missing?
Senator, I think the criticisms of Force Design are perhaps missing that to be first to fight, we must, in fact, be mobile. We must be there. We must be light enough to get there. And I think also what I would want everyone, this committee and others, to know is what has not changed. What has not changed is we are a Marine Air Ground Task Force. We're a globally responsive force, provided the mobility is there. And our ethos of training lethal elite warriors, that hasn't changed. So it is a matter of how do we improve and become more lethal, more mobile. That is the intent.
Okay, thank you. General, a second topic on which almost everything has been said, but not everyone has said it, is amphibious ships. I'm going to ask a slightly different question from the need for that extra ship, though. The Marine Corps leadership often and correctly reminds us of the need for amphibious lift capacity. Could you explain why the Corps is pursuing a new class of ships, the landing ship medium? And to my understanding, these won't be fielded until 2030s. So could you also explain how you can fill the gap for this capability in the near term until those ships are fielded?
Yes, sir. So the landing ship medium is a shore-to-shore transport. What that will enable our littoral regiments to do is go anywhere in that first island chain, because that craft is beachable. That's a key. We used to have a thing called an LST, a landing ship tank, but that vessel gets onto any beach. What that does is that spreads out an adversary's calculus, because they don't simply target ports, they would have to target the entire coastline. Until that is fully fielded, and we need 35 of them, approximately 9 per littoral regiment, we're using stern landing vessels that we are contracting, and we're open to using other surrogates until such time as we get those landing ship mediums, such as the EPF, which was mentioned earlier by Senator Tuberville, as an experiment and as a surrogate, as a bridge to those platforms. But the beachability, Senator, that's the key.
Thank you. I'd like to touch now, finally, on a topic I don't think has been addressed yet on the expeditionary advanced base operations concept of operations. Since any forces operating in the Western Pacific will face significant threats from Chinese missiles, could you please describe what resources the Corps needs to operate successfully under such conditions? And do you have the right capabilities and training that you need to execute the new EABO?
Senator, we do have the training, and it's continuing to mature and be better. Things like Marine Air Defense Integrated System, MADIS, and things like medium-range intercept capability provide us with an air defense capability that is mobile and expeditionary. And then our capabilities that are long-range fires and our low signature, low probability of intercept, low probability of detection communications, that enables you to shoot, move, and communicate in a manner that even hypersonics cannot reach you. If you are on your game plan, if your training remains, you can move faster than you are targeted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Kelly, if you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, thank you for being here. Good seeing you again. I enjoyed our conversation. I think it was last week. Thank you for taking the time, and look forward to continuing our work together. A high priority area of interest for me is ensuring that our military has the highest quality and most realistic training possible. It is, I'm convinced, it's one of the things that makes us stand out among other nations, is our high quality of our training. The Marine Corps Air Station in Yuma is home to the largest F-35 command in the Marine Corps. They also host the Weapons and Tactics instructor course that they do every year. It delivers the most advanced fighter pilots in the Marine Corps, which, as a Navy guy, I'd say are pretty good, those Marine fighter pilots. And they go on to train the rest of the forces, aviators, who are ready to take this fight to the adversaries if necessary. Across Arizona, Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, Luke Air Force Base, Davis-Monthan, they've identified some expanded airspace as a priority for providing realistic air-to-air training for fourth and fifth generation fighters and for preparing our forces for competition with our adversaries. So, in your view, General, how important is it to have expanded airspace that can support training demands for the Marine Corps?
Senator, absolutely vital, and I'll even do one better, sir. It's not just the aviation ranges that Yuma provides. When I took Regimental Combat Team 8 into Afghanistan, ground unit, I trained at Yuma to prepare myself and my regiment to go into combat in Afghanistan. It's a vital training range.
Yeah, so we're looking at trying to stitch together some of these, some of this airspace within Arizona in different ways. We're looking, at the and my staff and I will be talking more about this. The FAA reauthorization bill is a critical component of this. So, General, do I have your commitment to work with also the Air Force and the Army and DOD to move this effort forward?
Senator, if confirmed, you have my absolute commitment to do that.
Well, thank you. Another subject on mission readiness. General, I understand that last week the Marine Corps published its annual update to the Force Design 2030 plan. Can you highlight, some of the changes to this plan from the previous version and specifically address areas that will make for a more ready and a more lethal Marine Corps as it relates to competition in the Western Pacific?
Senator, I can. That annual update is one of many updates. So if I may, sir, the changes that have been made since our first marking round went downrange. We have changed the number of V-22 squadrons, added back 2. We've changed the size of an infantry battalion from 730 back to 811. We have changed the number of cannon batteries. But most importantly is the people. A very small thing, and I'll be quick, sir, and mindful of time. We have changed our basic infantry training. It used to be 8 weeks, now it's 16. 14. That training is 70 straight days now, and it's done as a squad. Those same 13 Marines start and end training together, trained by one sergeant or staff sergeant, and then they go to their unit together. We haven't done that before. They are, in my assessment, having observed it, they are better trained to operate in a disaggregated, high-threat environment because they are focused on working as a team. And as you know, sir, fighting as a team is key.
So the young Marine goes from boot camp to infantry school, and they train 13 squad members together. They go to a unit together?
That's correct, sir. And even though at that unit, they may be broken into fire teams, but that 13 Marine unit, they stay together through training, go to the same battalion. That's the thing we've always sought. It's kind of the holy grail, sir, and now we're doing it.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, and it does certainly make a ton of sense. Last question in my remaining time here. I only have 30 seconds or so. Water treatment plant in Yuma, water quality, you know, it's really a quality of life issue for Marines and their families there in Yuma. Can you provide your views on why we should be prioritizing the health and safety projects specifically, like this water treatment plant? And can I get your commitment to work with me to move this project forward quickly?
Senator, if confirmed, you absolutely have my commitment to do that on that project. What is so vital, it's the desert, and as I said, speed is life, as you know, sir, as is water. Those families have to be well taken care of, and those aircraft and other assets that we prepare there do require water and maintenance. And if we don't have that, it is a direct readiness impactor. And obviously, we can't afford to lose the environmental piece of those ranges either. We have to have those ranges to be able to be competitive.
Thank you. Thank you, General.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Peters, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Smith, good to see you. I enjoyed our office call recently. Appreciated the opportunity to sit down and talk about a variety of issues. And once again, congratulations on your nomination here today. During that office call, we spoke of the importance of electronic warfare and the urgency of the DoD to ramp up requirements and locations that are best to replicate the heavily congested EW operating environments that we're going to be confronted with. Would you mind walking the committee through some of the modernization efforts that the Marine Corps has undertaken to advance testing and training for both aerial and ground units who will face heavily contested electromagnetic spectrum in a conflict with either a peer or near-peer adversaries?
Senator, I can. And after our office call, I went back and tasked our Deputy Commandant for Information to take a look at what is available, what options, what opportunities at Selfridge, because those things are important to us. We're always looking for EW and cyber ranges. What we have done, Senator, is a combination of assessments and wargaming in a closed environment, meaning inside of a skiff, if you will, because that technology is so classified. And we've been working in our places, such as 29 Palms, to both reduce our signature of our forces forward and then detect those signatures. Those pieces of innovation are important. We recently went up during Northern Edge up in Alaska, and we sent our Marine Corps Warfighting Lab up there to experiment and confirm some of our theories of long-range communications that is not detectable, because that's a pretty harsh training environment up there, and we were happy to be rained and snowed and on and be cold.
Well, you bring up 29 Palms as a possibility, or your current training and possibilities for other training as well. But when thinking of reserve units, of guard units, my question is, are you looking at other installations as possibilities? And I bring that up because, as we spoke about in our meeting, Camp Grayling in northern Michigan, I think is the right type of place that would offer a mixture of capabilities and is certainly logistically advantageous for many East Coast and Midwestern-based units. Is that something you're giving consideration to?
Senator, it is, and if confirmed, I will continue to look for those ranges, any ranges that offer electronic warfare and cyber capabilities, because they are few and far between, as you know, sir, especially large expanses of space and places where we can exercise the entire spectrum.
Great. I certainly appreciate the Marine Corps' interest in reconfiguring its forces to meet the very rapidly changing demands of a 21st century battlefield. And during this process, the Marine Corps has changed the table of organization and equipment, including the divestiture of some tanks and artillery. The force design 2030 recent annual update singled some changes from light armored reconnaissance to multi-domain reconnaissance. Specifically, the update calls for maritime reconnaissance, waterborne companies, light mobile companies, and light armored companies, all of these with the intent to have greater reach as well as lethality. So given the attention that's been focused on Force Design 2030, as you've gotten a lot of attention from it here today with the questions of my colleagues, could you describe for the committee your vision for mobile reconnaissance battalions, and specifically, how do you plan to equip them?
Senator, those mobile reconnaissance battalions, we have light armored reconnaissance battalions now. We have reconnaissance battalions now, more foot mobile. Mobile reconnaissance means just that, any climb and place. We have ground capabilities now, and we are looking at an advanced reconnaissance vehicle. It is, and I'll be mindful here, sir, it is still in competition between multiple vendors, so I'll be mindful not to tip my hat or tilt toward one or the other. But those platforms enable us to both thicken and close kill chains and kill webs, provide long-range intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, bring in cyber fires, bring in space operations, which are all part of combined operations, in addition to artillery and rifle fire, naval gunfire, you pick it. Those cyber fires matter on the future battlefield. So that vehicle and shipborne or seaborne platforms such as long-range unmanned surface vessel, which we've tested back in 2019 when I was in charge at Quantico, those will all combine to give us the ability to truly fight in any climb and place and enable the joint force no matter where sent globally.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Peters. For a second round of questioning, Senator Sullivan is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, I wanted to dig into the force design issues as well. As you know, it's not without its critics. And by the way, it's not just retired old Vietnam 4-stars. It's recently retired 3-stars, 4-stars, some of the best minds, some of the best experienced Marines, at least in my experience, and I think in your experience as well. To Senator Cotton's question, I would sum up some of the criticism in kind of a broad category, like something like this. The divest to invest strategy shed in a rapid amount of time very significant proven Marine Corps combat capability. The numbers I have, and maybe they've changed, close to 10,000 active duty Marines, 6,000 reservists. By the way, I think we need to be a little humble here on the recruiting. You get a lot of compliments. I think you deserve them, but it's easy to hit your recruiting targets when you're getting rid of a lot of Marines. And a reduction of 21% of active duty infantry Marines, 16% of reserve infantry Marines, 67% of cannon artillery, 33% of AAVs, 100% tanks, 100% of bridging, 3 companies, along with breaching, clearing, proofing equipment, 100% of law enforcement. And I think one of the concerns has been, and you've heard it a little bit here, that these significant combat divestments and the focus on enhancing lethality around maritime choke points, particularly the PLA Navy, have raised questions about whether the Marine Corps is designing a niche, light infantry, missile-heavy force focused on one AOR at the expense of the Marine Corps' traditional role as a lethal, robust, combined arms force ready to respond to any global crisis. As you know, General, one of the hallmarks of the MAGTF is the ability to kick the door in anywhere in the world and sustain itself for weeks in heavy combat before follow-on forces arrive. So how do you respond to that criticism? And it's coming in from a lot of very well-respected Marines that we are undermining our ability to be the nation's 911 combined arms force.
Senator, I would say that we are not undermining that ability. The Marine Expeditionary Unit remains coin of the realm. Those Marine Expeditionary Units, we still retain 7 headquarters and all the battalions, the air combat elements, logistics combat elements needed for them. But as you know, sir, the amphibious warship piece is key. The ability for us to deploy rapidly and globally depends on us being light and lethal. And we had for a good number of years developed platforms that simply weren't movable unless we pulled up to one of a handful of ports in the Pacific for a really multi-day offload.
Let me ask, one of the other elements of divestment, which has been confusing, it was in one of the QFers that I sent to General Berger, we still haven't gotten back, is on the Marine Corps' divestments in aviation, in the wing. Some have said with the management of these assets, it's up to 200 aircraft. Others have said it's no aircraft. Can you commit to this committee? I'm not going to ask you for the numbers now. I submitted a very detailed question, question number 44 in the QFers on what are the numbers, because that's also very important. That has nothing to do with heaviness in tanks. These are F-35s, these are CH-53s, these are Cobras. Can you commit to this committee giving us the correct number on that? We're still waiting on the other QFer from 2 months ago.
Senator, if confirmed, I'll commit to you to always keep you updated on the number of aircraft total and per squadron and how we utilize them.
Let me ask two final questions. One, very quickly, again, one of the criticisms when the Marine Corps talks about force design, they talk about forces focus on littoral amphib ops. But what if the next fight is not in the littorals? What if it's back in the desert? What if it's a mount operation in an urban setting? What if Marines need to cross a river? Right now, I don't think we can cross a river. Maybe I'm wrong. What about that? And then I have one final question.
So, Senator, our premier training base remains the desert at 29 Palms. Infantry battalions continue to train there. So we retain desert training expertise. We have the largest MOUT, military operations and urban training facility in the Marine Corps at 29 Palms, and we use it. And we are currently working hard to build expeditionary bridging that is built for the vehicles which we have and the assets we have that need to be moved across certain gaps. But that is key, and we have to work on that and are doing so now.
Let me ask one final question. 4 years ago, General, Alaska was a potential location for a Marine Corps UDP program. It has year-round exceptional training, year-round. Darwin doesn't right now. It has the sea and airspace to conduct training for stand-in forces, EAOB ops. It has the infrastructure in place to support rotational and a permanent presence, including the world-class J-Park Air Training Range. You heard Senator Kelly talk about Yuma. I think J-Park is maybe 10 times bigger than Yuma. It is closer to Taiwan, Japan, and Korea than Marines located in Hawaii, and I believe Darwin. It has none of the ABO issues our allied and partner nations will likely have, in my view, whether it's in the Philippines or Australia. It has better cold weather training than Norway, provides cost savings compared to other locations where you could literally get to anywhere in the world, not just the Indo-Pacific. If confirmed, will you work with this committee to once again, you were looking at it 4 years ago and then it kind of got dropped, to consider Alaska for increased training, best training in the world, by the way, joint combined, potential UDPs, and pre-position storage of materials needed to fight in the Indo-PACOM or anywhere else in the world. You can get to Alaska. You can get anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere within 7 to 8 hours if you're based in Alaska, including Ukraine, Russia, China. Can I get your commitment on that, General, if confirmed?
Senator, to confirm 100% commitment, because as you described, sir, phenomenal training, as I just experienced myself when I went up there in April in this northern edge, and the F-35 pilots will tell you, they love going there because of, as you said, sir, the massive airspace available to them. So you have my absolute commitment to look at all aspects that enhance our lethality, and Alaska, I'm committed to it, sir, just as I went up there, 100% committed to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. General Smith, thank you for your service and your sacrifice and that of your family. You are eminently qualified to become the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, and we will do our best to expedite the confirmation, and we look forward to working with you. With that, I will adjourn the hearing.